So, what if courage was about living above the line? The little steps living above the line. Courage to forgive, courage to make a decision, courage to have the conversation with your team. Let me just tell you a quick story. So I'm in Gold Coast. I'm sitting on the table, just like this one here. And Ronaldo, who I met at the Tony Robbins event, I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, we're part of the senior leadership team. He comes in and says to me, "Let me tell you a story." And he said, "We make all our food with love. We handle all our food with love." And I said, "Wow." He said, "I don't have any secrets. We share all our recipes with all our clients and everyone else because people can't copy us because they don't have the secret ingredient." And I thought, wow, he really does live by his values. And then he said, now he tells me the story. I think I got that a bit mixed up in here. So let me tell you a story. And he said, I was standing in my kitchen. He's got this two-way mirror. And the phone rings, and he's looking out, and he sees this big guy there. So he comes out, and he says, "Wow, Tony Robbins, wow, I'm a big fan of yours. I live in Brazil, I've read all your books, and I'm such a big fan. Come through. And he goes, "Please, have something to eat." And he has a conversation with him, and he says to him, "I'd love to come to one of your events one day." That conversation finishes. And then 2 years later, he's in the kitchen. He gets a message, there's a big guy at the front for you, some big guy asking about catering pack. Goes to the front, it's Tony, goes, "Wow, I can't believe you're here again, unbelievable." And he said, I was going to come to your event, and he starts listing all the excuses why he couldn't come to the event. I said, "What are you doing this Thursday?" He said, "Well, nothing much." He goes, "Well, why didn't you come as my guest?" So he came as a guest, and that's how I met him. So I said to him, "It's interesting how you saw Tony stand outside your store looking at the sign. Maybe it was the love that you put in the food and the customer service and everything else that attracted him into your store." So a week later, I'm at home. I'm on a Skype call with a friend of mine called Juan. He's a psychologist in Colombia, doing lots of good work out there in Colombia. And I tell him this story. I said I was in the Day with Destiny event, Tony Robbins, and we had a great time. And he said, "Hey, check this out." And he showed me a photo of him with Tony Robbins on stage. I said, "Wow, how did you go on stage with Tony?" And he said, "Well, I was in New York a couple of years ago. It was the break time. Everyone was walking out this way, and I thought I'll go that way." So he goes, "I ran to the stage, and I said, 'Tony!' And he goes, other people had the same idea. So he said, 'Tony!' And then he thought, I got the courage just to shout it out. I said, 'Tony!' And all of a sudden he looked at me, and he said, 'Tony, in your book, you say, ask and you shall receive.' He goes, 'I got two things to ask. One, I'd like to come on stage right now. Two, I'd like a photo with you, please.' So Tony looks at him and he says, 'Okay, then come on up.' So he goes on stage and he has his photo taken and all that stuff. Then he asks him a question. He said, 'I come from Colombia. We have a lot of challenges. Sometimes I feel like, what do I do next?' He goes, 'There's one piece of advice you can give me before I go from here. What would that be?' And Tony looks at him in the eye and he said, 'Wow, I haven't seen that look for a long time. Since the first day I met Joseph. Joseph is one of his senior trainers.' And he said, 'The secret to success is to take massive, determined action.' And then Juan said to me, 'Take a look at this.' He turned his iPad around onto the wall. He's got a picture of Tony Robbins there with a quote underneath that says, 'The secret to success is to take massive, determined action.' And then Juan said to me, 'That's been on my wall before I went to the event.' He told me exactly the same thing. And I said to him, 'Wow, what are the chances of that happening?' I told him the story about Ronaldo, and I said, 'Juan, I know you come from an energy of love. You go up there and you just want to help people and so on. And maybe that's what got you on the stage, because I know Tony, if it's significance, a photo, he won't let you on. He'd read you like a book.' So something inspired him to connect with him. And one said to me, 'Well, what if to every action the ingredient must be love?' I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I had this conversation. I went out and I told my wife the same story. I said, I was on the phone with Juan, and I said, 'The secret to success is take massive, determined action.' And she said, 'Wow, I needed to hear that.' And I went to my chiropractor the same day and I told him the story because I was just excited. I was just inspired by it. And 3 minutes through our cracking and all that stuff, he stopped and he said, 'You just gave me an idea.' Because he looked a bit stressed out, that's why I told him the story. And he said, I said, 'What's that? You're going to go on holiday?' He said, No. He said, my landlord's been pushing me on the rent. And you know what? You just I just realized I've got to take massive, determined action. I said, oh, cool. And I've shared that story many times, and I'm sharing this with you now. Take massive, determined action. So courage is those little steps every single day that you take. The decision to decide that you want to go into business. The decision to decide to have that conversation at work, with your team, with your partner. The decision to forgive and let go. Oftentimes we think courage, we see all the movies and everything else, it's about having a fight and stepping up, being masculine, all that stuff. Gandhi said, the weak cannot forgive. Forgiveness is an attitude of the strong. And that's what courage is about. It's about living the values at work, speaking your values through action. So what are the 5 constipating enemies to courage? Number 1, limiting beliefs. The limiting beliefs you have about yourself and the limiting beliefs you have about others, your team, it could be people you know at home, and so on. Number 2, fear. Making up stories in your head of things that haven't happened. And that holds you back from having the courage to make a decision. Number 3, negative environments. Sometimes we go on a training course, we go back to an environment that doesn't support us. This is one of the biggest factors. Mark Twain said, show me your friends, I'll show you your life. And I believe he meant the people you hang around with, the books you read, the television you watch, what you say to yourself every morning when you wake up. Number 4, distractions. More and more distractions. Technology, emails, Facebook, ding, dong, dong, you know what I'm talking about. My daughter's telling me, I said, what's that ding? She goes, I've got to feed the cat. I said, there isn't a real cat there. She goes, no, I've got to feed the cat. And they make them to get our attention. And then those distractions lead to the 5th constipating enemy, which is procrastination. And we procrastinate. And life is short, we've heard that before. So I suppose the one question I have for you is massive, determined action. What is that going to be for you? Even if it's just that tiny little step.